people in this country who are going to be, are already wealth creators, who are going to come out and give you ideas of products and services that they are providing, the thinking that they're putting together in this boat called Team India, where we all have to now approach 2021 together. And 2021 surely has to be a year that's more of a game changer than the economic history teaches us 1991 was. We do this in association with Business World. Let me quickly take the opportunity of introducing our panel tonight. Farman Baig, co-founder and CEO of Whataburger, joining us on the broadcast. Jayant Bokadia, CEO of Nimba Nature Cure, is with us. Mr. Prasad Rajappan, founder and CEO of Zing HR. Joji George, who is founder of Go Nuts Asia, is joining us. And as always, Dr. Anurag Batra, editor-in-chief of Business World, on the broadcast with us as well. Anuragji, I don't know if you can hear us. Kick this off for us, please.
I'm happy that there are no fatalities in that grenade attack in Pulwama. But coming back to livelihoods, livelihoods impact lives, as we heard in the conversations. Let me start by asking Joji. Joji, you're in the content and technology space. In the last 8 months, the consumption of content via technology has gone up, and specialized content has gone up. Influencers have become more influential, but not necessarily richer. Give us a sense of what's happened in the last 8 months in your business, and where do you see it headed?
Thank you, Anurag, for having me. For starters, I think a little bit of a change as far as Go Nuts is concerned, because we were conceived in this COVID period. And that's interesting because while many businesses were shutting up, while there was so much of turbulence in the market, especially when it comes to startups, not only were we conceived and born, but we sustained and thrived. And, and in fact, also raised our seed funding in the middle of all of this. Fandom has always been at the heart of every Indian and globally. I mean, everyone is a fan of somebody. And what we aim to do with Go Nuts was fundamentally bring together celebrity and fans or people who wanted to engage and become the trusted pipe to them. And actually, this services the entire Indian diaspora, simply because whether you look at various segments, be it music, television, sports, everyone is a fan of somebody. So the whole idea of Go Nuts was to actually create a platform for human connection and communication. And when COVID happened and everyone was in their homes with inability to meet or to interact, this became a service that people started to connect with each other using celebrities as avatar. So what it taught us during this period of time?
For most part of that lockdown, brands were on a pause.
Yes.
So how do you monetize this? I know the last 2 months, because of IPL and the Diwali season, the brands being active again have been good for the brand and advertising ecosystem, and hence for the influencer. But what happened in the first 6 months?
So in the first 6 months too, of course, since the business was starting out and we were trying to introduce a completely new concept when it comes to fandom and fan engagement, it took its time to gain traction. But our content are our stars and our artists. So while most of them were home without being able to perform or go out there, this became an incredible opportunity for them to really consider this as an alternative source of income. And that became a big selling point to them to try this out, because in normal times they would have poo-pooed it. Because the income is small, this is going to take some time to build traction, and everyone wants money right now. So in the COVID period, this became a very viable source of income for many of them. And today I can proudly say that we have over 500 stars, 90% of them who are exclusive on the Go Nuts platform.
Okay, so you clearly utilized the lockdown and the last 8 months as an opportunity, and looking ahead, possibly you see the future more optimistic than a lot of others. Farman, you heard Joji. What has happened to your business in the last 8 months, and where do you see it headed?
Yeah, if you talk about the food and F&B industry, like we have been at the receiving end, as the hotel industry and the F&B, they have been hit the hardest basically. So when the lockdown starts, it was no one has perceived this situation before. So we were just we were on the note that we were guessing what would happen next in the next 15 days, 20 days. But down, as a month passed, we thought that now is the time that we have to pull up our socks basically, and we have to stop all those areas which are bleeding. Good for us. The only thing that worked for us was we focused on the online delivery platform right from the start when we started this brand. At the time of inception, when we started this brand back in 2016, we were of the opinion that in Indian market, the rental is a very high point of churning for the restaurants. High rentals, basically, they occupy more than the space which is required for a perfect functional or operational basis, basically. And that is the area where most of the people they run down their businesses, basically. So we were of the opinion that we are not going to spend more on the rentals. We are going to save on the rental cost, and we will be focusing more on the deliveries, basically. And that was the reason.
So restaurants in the cloud, the cloud kitchens and the cloud restaurants have really
and we
integrated through COVID, where home delivery and dining experience at home and do-it-yourself kits have become part of the normal way of living.
Yeah, exactly. And when we started this thing, and it was a lot of people used to ask us, sir, we want to open a big outlet, 2,000 square feet spread across this mall. We were of the opinion, no, you should be focusing, because this online delivery will be a trend in the basically. So you should be focusing more on the online and getting the number of people, because the more number of people you can connect through online is very less as compared to what you can get at a dining space. Basically, you would be reaching 5,000 people.
Rishabh, what is good is both Joji and Farman look at COVID as a game changer in a positive way. They're being optimistic. Farman is looking at the opportunity being bigger with the physical footprint. Prasad, if you look at jobs in the last 8 months, and especially in the last 18 months, 30 million jobs have been lost in the formal sector. There have been losses of jobs in the informal sector. Now, tell us, do you see jobs coming back? Because if we think of revival of the economy, it's about jobs coming back. It's about people earning well. I think that's what creates demand and sustains the economy. What's your outlook on jobs going forward? And what have you done in the last 8 months in your own venture?
So look, first, I think jobs will trickle back, but work will come back fast. When I'm making a differentiation between job and work, formal jobs will not come the way it went off with the same rate of speed. But the work will come out. While a lot of people are very skeptical, but I believe gig is going to be there. If you look at what has happened in COVID is, businesses are worried about business continuity. They are worried about customer retention. Employees are worried about job loss. Everyone wants to convert their fixed cost into variable. Yeah. So I think this is going to be huge matchmaking happening. Everyone is concerned about productivity on their own area. So my personal belief is a lot of work will come, and it's already coming. And we are witness to that, because we see a lot of companies converting their fixed salary people into variable cost. Okay, because they want certainty. Now, another good thing is happening, Anurag, is what we always wanted, de-urbanization is going to happen. A lot of people have gone back to their own places. Farming will pick up. Manufacturing and other locations are going to really pick up. I think this is a good news for us in that sense. The equilibrium which we always wanted, on the negative way, COVID has really make it happen. On Zinglicha's side, I think for us, like Joji and Farman, I think it has been a boon for us. All of a sudden, customers realize that the business depends on people. We have become almost like an essential commodity. There's huge demand on e-learning, geofencing attendance, digital onboarding. Everything has gone digital. Our platform being in 26 languages is now used by more than about 11 lakh employees. All of a sudden, the consumption of my apps have almost grown 3 times, 4 times. But one good thing is, it has helped connect people. companies have been able to connect people who are displaced. They have done surveys and found out whether the family is good or not, whether they got the food or not. So the human element has improved. And I think I always believe COVID is a big leveler. It has brought everyone who's in the head of the race and who are behind into one baseline. And so at Zing HR, we are very, very happy to say that we are taking a task of creating more jobs. We ourselves are doing our own academy and training a lot of HR people to become entrepreneurs. We recently started some academy for the armed forces, people who are retiring from armed forces and coming back to corporate. So I think as a entrepreneur, we have a moral responsibility of creating a lot of jobs in India in various sectors, and we are happy to be a part of that journey.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I want to ask all three of you a question that I normally ask at the end, but I'll ask it upfront today. Where, as entrepreneurs, I'm sure you've learned new skills and you've learned a new way of doing business or new way of thriving. Tell us, what are your top lockdown lessons? And my second question is, when do you see the Indian economy back in full bloom? In 6 months, 12 months, or 18 months?
I think I can take a start at this. I think the two fundamental lessons we learned over this last, probably 8 months to 10 months, has been resilience, the ability to really fight back, dig your heels, and not take no for an answer, to be able to really innovate and redefine ways of working. And I think the second most important lesson is capital deployment. How do you basically and effectively utilize the money you have in areas that are important and areas that are good to do? We always tend to, in good times, everything is good to do. But I think this has been a leveler, as one of the panelists has said, where you have had to take those priorities head on and make sure that your capital deployment is just in the right places that will help grow your business faster. Coming to your second question, do we see a rebound? I mean, to be honest with you, if the COVID hadn't hit, we wouldn't really the best growth number in that quarter as far as India was concerned. I would think it would take us a year or so before things get back to the normal. But I'm just hoping that newer incentives and initiatives taken by the government, be it infusion of capital, infrastructure, whole of those kind of things, which are macroeconomic yet very, very important for businesses to thrive. If those are put into place, implemented, bureaucracy is kind of looked at in a way that actually works. FDI, how do you, kind of able to...
You're saying government's role will become even more important.
Absolutely.
In terms of enabling policies that create entrepreneurship,
That's
that
right.
support entrepreneurs, and you're alluding to public spending. My sense is, as soon as the COVID starts to wane and the vaccine is around, the government will start doing massive public spending, whether it's in infrastructure creation, or it is through other schemes of the government.
Absolutely.
And you're right, Joji. I keep saying for advertising, in bad times you should advertise, in good times you must. So clearly, in the last 8 months, brand building has taken on a new, and most of the brands need to be relationship oriented, not transactional. So that's where brand salience and brand relationships come into play. Prasad, you talked about how technology is impacting the landscape of work. It's impacting workspaces. It's impacting the skills. Tell us what kind of new jobs will get created. And as I asked you, what are the new lockdown lessons that Prasad Rajappan has learned and started implementing?
Yeah, I think I would just like to take on the second question asked. I am very optimistic on the rebound. My guess is by Jan end we should rebound with the vengeance.
Why?
And I think India will. I'm saying I think there's also basically one is the vaccine part. I think mentally we are very strong. We already started signs of beating the slowdown. I think the government is doing a lot of steps like the Bharat Nirbar Yojana. People have gone to the places. I've done enough survey. We found people have gone to the native place, have started small entrepreneurs. I think beyond Jan, I'm saying that the end of Jan with the start of our bounce back is my, I won't say prediction. I'm not analyst there, but I think it will come.
So I'll just disagree
And,
on this point. Basically, I don't think so. Jan will be enough for us to like for a rebound. As I said, there has been a lot of correction that has happened, as you mentioned already, Prasad. That has happened in the COVID basically, and I just mentioned one correction that has happened like in a positive way for us. That has been the rent correction. India, like Delhi NCR, has been on the virtual side of the rents. There has been properties which are like at the same rental as you compared, like the New York Street, basically.
Yeah, correct.
So for us, like we have been putting.
We're losing you, Farman. Farman, we are losing you. Hello, are you there?
Yeah.
So while we get Farman, Prasad, what I
Sorry,
want- you were telling us about the lockdown lessons you learned.
Yeah, two lessons. I think one is focus into purpose. A lot of people have been doing a lot of things which is not really of the purpose. Organizations, individuals, as Mundalas, whether travel is required or not, or whether this work is required or not. So a lot of non-productive work is actually going out, which is very good. The second is to focus on outcomes. So we have a tagline at Zingacha called outcomeation. We said don't do anything if there's not an outcome. Or for long we have been focused on means. For long we have been saying let us do this, why? We don't know. Let us do bots, why? We don't know. Let us do AI, we don't know what. So I think lockdown lessons for us is focus on outcomes. We, for example, in Zingacha today has the audacity to tell people using HR tech I can improve your EBITDA margins. We can improve your top line. Come let us talk. We're not just improving digitization. So lessons for us is to look inward, look at our strength, look at outcomes, and focus on your purpose. Very, very clear. I think we should be sorted.
Beautiful, Prasad. I think we realize less is more. We need to focus on the essential and something that delivers outcomes here. Bang on that. Farman, when we lost you were talking about how the rentals coming down or landlords' expectations coming down is one of the blessings that COVID has given you, because in terms of our prime rental spaces, our rentals are across the highest in the world. So you were telling us that when we lost you. So
I think we're losing.
Yeah, Prasadji, what he was saying was on the rental space, and I know Anurag likes to talk about this because that's where he began his career. On the rental space, are we seeing the practicality happen? Before I jump in with a few more questions. Prasadji.
Yeah, I think, again, I go back to my same philosophy, outcome and the purpose. We all realized that rented office was not required. We had created artificial demand for rentals in good and posh. Today we realize work can happen from home. So if you focus on the outcomes and the purpose, all those things will come down. It will go to a new normal. Okay? Like all of, we have given our office, 60% of office we have given away. We did not do layoffs. We increased, even we had increments. We gave stock options. But we ensured that office was never required. So if we focus on landlords, I think we had created a hype about rental properties. A lot of people have just given up. I'm sure, I at least checked in the industry we are, people have 50% of office have been vacant now.
Exactly.
So it has to come down.
Okay,
because
all right.
Purpose,
Okay.
I would like to.
Yeah. Farman, go ahead. Then I have a couple of questions to ask. Farman Beg, go ahead.
Okay, so I have something to add to it. Basically, there are like two types of people in the society. Basically, so there have been owners who were like very stringent on this part that they are not going to budge on the rentals, and after 2 or 3 months they are realizing the fact, okay, now we have lost a good tenant basically, and now we are not going to get another tenant for another 6 to 8 months now. And there has been some good owners or property owners who have realized this COVID situation way before, as it was like, it started in the month of April, and they from their side, they offer, okay, let's cut down your rentals. I think it will not be feasible to work on the full rentals. Let's talk about how we can manage for the rest of the year and the year to come.
Okay.
So for us, it was like a rent correction thing. So there has been bleeding for us. There has been areas where we have been bleeding, but due to COVID, we have been able to look down to that areas specifically.
Okay, so a cost analysis has happened.
Point I want to make is, for the first time, landlords are more open to a revenue share. I think they've gone from pure rentals. They've become partners in the business, what they should have been in the first place. So that correction, retailers were trying to do it for at least a decade or so. But for the first time, the landlords have foregone upfront heavy rents and supported tenants who are good retailers and whose businesses are fundamentally strong to be able to do a revenue share model where both of them thrive. So I think that fundamental change has happened in the last 8 months.
All right. Before I take a break, let me quickly get Joji back into this conversation. Joji, just to touch upon this. So in the end, business is about turning a profit, right? Now, are we seeing business models develop, especially in the space that you are in, where you can be online, provide a service, but also charge for it and turn a profit?
Absolutely. I'm very happy to, kind of let you know that over this last, tenure that we've been in business, we've grown at an average rate of about 20 to 30% month on month. And in fact, by the end of our financial year, next of March, we would have been in the revenue of about 2 to 3 crores of being just 1 year in business.
Okay.
It's a
so
small
what is
number.
the revenue model like? I mean, what do you charge for? Where does the money come in? Does it come in principally advertisements, or does it come in through paid subscriptions? How do you guys do it?
So our whole premise is based on a service that the celebrity provides by providing you with a video message that that is targeted at somebody who you want to give a surprise to.
Yeah.
And this video message is recorded on their phone, sent to the platform, and the platform delivers it to that recipient and makes it a memorable moment in their lives, for which a charge is based on each artist.
Okay, but are you seeing celebrities now looking at various other modes of income? Because otherwise, initially there were celebrities. I remember a few decades ago who thought advertorials or doing ads is a very cheap thing to do. We should make our principal money only from the films we make. Then we saw all of them started doing ads. Are they now looking? Are they looking at alternative sources of revenue?
Well, as somebody on the panel said, necessity is a mother of invention, and at the end of the day, this COVID has taught a lot of people and brought people also to understand that one has to look at things in a very, very different light and create new models for themselves.
Okay, so what's the scalability here? As the model that you develop, where do you see it adapting, other than the obvious context that if I want to wish Anurag Batra happy birthday, then I can log on to Go Nuts and get his favorite celebrity. Where does it scale beyond that?
In fact, the scale is going to be, we're going to be disrupting the entire wedding invitations business, which is a huge business currently, and also from an HR perspective. So in an HR business, fundamentally, or within companies, this whole concept of let's communicate with employees has been a bit of a question mark. HR typically interacts with employees either when you're hiring them or when you're firing them. What happens to employee engagement? And employee engagement through celebrities has far more memory and has a deeper resonance with them.
Okay.
And therefore, these are areas in which we are now.
So why not? I think I should be sending my team a New Year's message from a celebrity from Go Nuts. Okay. But one more quick question before I open Prasadji once again. In a very practical sense, is it easier for you to function when you guys you're saying you're a young company starting off literally? Was it easier than it would have been earlier? Have you guys faced hurdles along the way? We keep talking ease of doing business. Has it become easier?
Well, yes, I think it has definitely made easier. Not just from a regulation perspective. I think government is doing a lot of things to make it easier, but clients have become receptive. Ideas which were throwing up some time back, like Joji was saying. For example, we had launched a product called Zero Touch Payroll. We said, why do you want to process a payroll? It is available real time. When we launched it before COVID, people were not receptive. Today, they are realizing that today employees can process their own payroll.
No, but the question, Prasadji, I was asking for you to function as a company, okay, in terms of the compliances you have to deal with in hiring and firing. Are you seeing changes happening where you're thinking, okay, it's become easier for us to take risks? We might, set up a branch where we rope in more people, and if that doesn't work, we adapt. In traditional companies in India, this is not easy to do. The large scale hiring for a push, then it doesn't work, and then retrenchment doesn't happen that way. Prasadji.
No, I think it's been easier. You're right. It has become easier. The exits have become easier. For example, even the Atmanirbhar Yojana, which is make the PF free for new employees, PF free for 2 years. A lot of things are really helpful for making it hiring friendly.
Okay.
I think as entrepreneurs, we are very gung-ho on hiring and not worried about any bureaucracy tapes. Yeah.
Okay, let me rope in Farman. Farman, just for viewers watching the broadcast, can you explain to us, your journey at, with your colleagues and your partners at Whataburger?
Basically, Whataburger started in 2016, and up till now, it's been 4 years, and we are a bootstrap brand. We haven't raised any round of funding up till now because we have been a profitable company. But since the start of COVID, there has been, it has been a roller coaster ride for us. Like no one expected us to, no one from our team basically, and we had a huge team. Like we have like around 180 employees who are working for Whataburger kitchens basically, and there are other 30 employees who are working at the head office basically.
Okay, so if I'm going to ask you, and let me just break it down because this is the reason we have this conversation. How difficult was it starting the company? I mean, was it a pain, especially in restaurants? I believe, what was the 40 kind of clearances that you need to put together, figuring out, hygiene standards, training employees, hiring people, thinking about corporate strategy. Was it very painful, or could you guys really say, okay, within 3 weeks, we have a company set up?
See, being born in the Indian society, we know how to get things done basically. Yes, there are certain hiccups and hurdles, like when we start a restaurant basically, once you are not from the industry, because professionally, I was a business analyst and a software engineer to be precise, and I venture out into a food company, F&B business. So for me, this was altogether a new domain. So, but 2 months, 3 months or 6 months down the line, I was like, I was aware of the situation, that what are the licenses, major licenses that were necessary. And, there are departments in the government. If you go to the right person, you can get the things done.
Okay, so you can get things done. So are we looking at, can you set up a restaurant within days and weeks, or does it still take months?
No, you can days.
Okay, you can do days and weeks. Okay, all right.
All the paperwork done. If you have the right person at your hand, basically.
Okay, you need to know the right people. Okay.
Exactly.
Business advice. Business advice is that you need to know the right people.
And Rishabh, dare I say,
Yeah.
today there are, funding that is available easily. There are accelerators,
Yeah.
there are incubators, there are funding cohorts. The whole entrepreneurial and funding ecosystem is very well developed. There are role models. There are specialist funds that look at F&B and QSRs. So,
Farman Beg, what is, when you guys thinking that we're going to do a burger, right? And in a place where we are full of massive burger chains and standalone restaurants and every other restaurant that seems to have at least 1 or 2 burgers on its menu, where is the business opportunity there for somebody else dreaming the same thing? How do you make it a business?
See, once we decided that we are going to venture out in F&B, and it is going to be a food chain, especially a burger chain for us, we thought of something which is missing in the market, and it was a fusion food for us. So there has been, if you see McDonald's, Burger King, they all are European-based chain, basically. The taste is European. What we thought, why not just club the Indian food, the top Indian foods with the fast food, in terms of burger, and the result will be the fusion food, which will be on the taste buds of the Indian basically. Like you take the example.
Okay, so the idea is you want to set up. I don't have much time, so I want to pick your brain as much as I can. So the idea is you want to set up a fundamentally different product than what is already being offered by the big chains. Okay.
Yeah, it's a fusion product.
Okay.
Basically,
So you start that. But what did you have to really get right? Was it the product itself, or was your marketing more important? Was your customer outreach, acquisition more important? Your technology was more important? What was more important that drove the business to where you are now?
See, if you look at the F&B, basically the food thing, if you want to be really popular, the first thing which you need to do it correctly is the taste. Unless and until you have a good taste, and the taste which is there on the palate of, it needs to be there on the palate of each Indian basically, is going to work for you. So the best thing works for you is the mouth-to-mouth publicity. And then there comes a number of things.
Okay. Before I go back to Joji, Farman, where does it go from here? What is scalability? Are you guys really looking to scale? Are you looking to diversify offerings? Where do you see this going? Because if you want to take on...
Right now, Whataburger is spread across 9 states, 16 cities in India with 55 live outlets. So what we are planning by the end of 2021, 120 outlets live across India.
Okay, 120 outlets. So you're doing thousands
Yes.
of servings per day.
Exactly, 10,000.
What is the
10,000
lesson
burgers
learned
served
here?
each day.
From, you were just telling us, from software engineer to entrepreneur, the transition lesson.
Yeah. Even after completing my after completing my engineering, I went to England for my master's degree, and then in England, I decided that I am going to start my business. And for business, India is the best place for you to venture out in business and to take your career as an entrepreneur, because the best thing you have in hand is the population. Even if the thing works with the 1% of the population, you are going to do wonders for your business, basically.
Okay, so you're saying, so you'll encourage people who are studying out there to start starting their own business. Joji, my same logic to you. Do you guys, when you are planning, ideating new platforms, new products, should we be looking at replicating basically what's all out there with a desi flavor? We're seeing that's happening already, right? A lot of platforms are offering services that were made, simply they're just being made here in India now. Is that the way forward? Do we need to master that strategy? Do we need to be coming up with more innovative products that are better world beaters? What should be the strategic approach for a young entrepreneur out there?
I think the main thing for anyone who's setting up something, as you rightly pointed out in your question, differentiation is going to be the key. Taking something, hashing it up and making it up, making it Indian in that sense of the word, can apply to certain categories, not to every category. But what's really important and how we approach this business is we're basing it on a couple of pillars, and that's been our strategy going forward. One is, what is the content? Second is, how do you build connection? Third, how do you build community? And how is this going to be a pathway to commerce? These are the 4 pillars on which we are building our business. And the first thing is, when it comes to content, with our stars, the easiest thing you can do is, okay, as you rightly said, okay, here's a birthday message, sending it out to somebody. No, that's not how we do. We actually co-create that content with the star to be able to do it differently, that is unique to Go Nuts. And
okay, but so how do you get past the issues of novelty value? That okay, a lot of people will do this once, right?
Yeah.
But you want them to keep coming back again and again. How do you become like chocolates and flowers?
You'd be surprised how many reuse people who come back to utilize the service are now part of this portfolio. In fact, once people get this, they're so surprised with that this is now possible, and they can really surprise and make memories in the lives of people.
Okay, but the question I was asking, internationally there are other platforms that offer similar services, many of them based out of America. I think I was reading somewhere that you can get Charlie Sheen to give you a video message these days. In that regard, my question was, are we seeing models out there and we have to simply bring them here, and as Farman said, there's a big market here. So you bring and adapt a product here, it'll do well. Or are you guys thinking of innovations where you flip it around, you go to foreign markets?
That is exactly what we want to do. We want to become, and as you rightly, when you started off, you explained me Go Nuts as Asia's largest platform for human connection. That's our ambition. To become Asia's largest platform and be the unicorn out of India to the global market.
Okay, please go conquer the Chinese market. You have all our support and best wishes. Let me quickly get
Prasad. We've got enough Indians all over the world, my friend.
Oh yeah, we got all. That's also true. It's not just in India, Farman. We are everywhere. Prasad ji, I want to ask you a few very practical questions, especially because there's a larger audience watching this broadcast. We're live on television. In this regard, are you seeing company patterns of hiring change? You've already gone extensively to say that, look, a lot of companies are now embracing the logic of why do I need this massive office space and, pay the electricity bill and the water bill and the rental bill. But are we seeing what people are looking for change? Is the hiring pattern changing? Are companies out there looking for a different set of skills than they were 2-3 years ago?
I think absolutely, Anurag. I think people are looking for multi-skills. I think the people earlier were looking for departments. We had a lot of functional silos. But what we are seeing, and we also almost predicted that will happen, is we'll have more cross-functional teams. Okay, there will be no separate teams for only sales and manufacturing and all. There will be cross-functional smaller teams who will take over the traditional functional boundaries. And when you had functional boundaries, you had always the hierarchy going up and down. So even the people whom we are hiring, so we don't do hiring, we provide platform for hiring.
Yeah.
But the job descriptions have gone for a toss, really gone for a toss. The designations have gone for a toss.
No, can you explain this? Because I'm really interested in a lot of people coming out of a chaotic situation in college, right? And we were told from my generation to this one that, we are creating unemployable youth, that people are coming out with degrees, but they really don't fit into a workplace. I can tell you that applies in journalism also. You start your training the day you get your first job or internship. What you might have studied in college is probably meaningless. Are we seeing that fundamentally change?
Absolutely. I'll give a small example. There are multiple examples. Let me take a profession of HR itself. There are a lot of MBA colleges who do HR, and traditionally they were just got a job. Now all of a sudden after pandemic, people are saying, why do you need fresh HR people? We have now started our own academy where we're training HR people to say how you can generate profits for the company. Now, earlier people were not thinking that HR department will generate profits for the company.
So HR was generally just about managing rosters and making sure everybody got sick leave and annual leave. So now you're saying HR should be thinking, how does HR become a profit-making exercise? Is it in cost cutting? What do you do as an HR person?
No. We're not talking of just cutting costs. We're not saying. So we are talking about how do I improve the EBITDA margins. Okay. I think I'll talk offline. We are running academy. We're saying, can I train professionals, not just HR, or how do I improve the EBITDA margins of the company? How do I improve the top line of the company? How do I improve the market share of the company? Each function today has the obligation. I'm using the obligation.
Okay, so I'm assuming what you're saying is that the HR functions are now about promoting efficiencies, increasing them, leveraging of HR to boost the bottom line. These logics get applied. So what are you looking for? What are companies looking for people? Are they looking for data scientists? If so, are we getting data scientists fresh out of college, or do we have to train them from scratch?
No, I think there are definitely looking people who are very good at analytics. I think people have realized that just doing analytics and data doesn't work. People are looking for people who can do data science, predictive analytics, people who are good in multi-skills. They're not stuck to a department. So I've seen interviews now saying, somebody says, no, I don't want to be in marketing, I want to be in sales. So vice versa is out. Okay. Today people are saying how much revenues can you generate. So a lot of new areas like data science, blockchain is coming in a big way.
No, what I'm asking is, what should young people, are we getting young people who already know this stuff as they exit college? Somebody who's done BCom or MA economics, do they know any of these things, or do we have to completely restart from scratch?
No, I think they're doing. Good news is they're already ahead of the curve. Many of them are already doing it, but maybe as industry we were not recognizing. So we get young interns who have already done some startups are already doing 3 more skills.
Okay.
I think good news is they are already broken the typecast.
Okay, so that's happening. You're saying, okay, you are seeing some positivity amongst all the negativity of people telling us that we're just producing a lot of people with degrees which in the workplace are meaningless. Okay, let me open Farman back into this conversation. Farman, in scalability, imagine you are addressing a young entrepreneur fresh out of college, right? Just like you were once upon a time, finishing engineering and wanted to start. When was that point of scale where you felt you had a tipping point, right? After I've done my third restaurant, fourth, fifth outlet, sixth outlet, where it simply could not be just one individual or a group of founding individuals managing those outlets. You had to then outsource and start hiring and get into technology. What were the lessons you learned?
See, I was a project management graduate, basically masters. So I know how things work basically. So it was never a tipping point for me that like after 3 outlets, 4 outlets, or even 10 outlets basically, I used to plan my things accordingly, what we are going to do in the future. Me and my business partner, we were always of the opinion, okay, this is the thing that we are going to do in the next 6 months or 1 year. So we already have the budget sorted, and that's the reason we never, venture out for, funds or investors from the market. Like we have been approached a number of times by the investors. Okay, we wanted to invest in Whataburger. It has been one of the fastest growing burger chain in India. But we were waiting just for the right time that at least, okay, we'll go with the funding, we'll go with the Series A or whatever it is, basically. But at a stage when we think that we need someone from the outside from the industry to help us grow from that point, not before that.
Okay.
Because we always believe that we will be able to get Whataburger to 100 outlets easily.
So what is the challenge? So now what's the challenge? Like I said, there, if you're running 3 or 4 outlets, then you and couple of founding partners can directly manage, look at those outlets. But as you go across cities, across states, you can't physically be there. You can't do quality control and handle things. So what's the challenges that you faced?
We have the system in place in which we have the area managers, then we have the ops executives who are there who are responsible for answering their higher management people for the functional level at the outlet, basically from the inventory level. If you talk about any division in a restaurant, basically.
How is data helping you? Are you guys able to now source? I'm going to put that into a couple of contexts, because everybody says data, but nobody really says how. When you're opening a new outlet, are you doing data analytics? What are you doing? Explain that to us.
Without having gone through the data, without having gone through the demographical study of that area, we'll never go for any outlet, because for you it could be a crowd. Okay, this is a very crowded place. A burger joint will work basically, but the demographics tell you, the data tell you whether that crowd is a burger eating crowd or not.
So where do you get the data from? I mean, where does the data? Are you hiring specialist data firms? Do you do it internally?
We do have a data scientist. We do have a data scientist in the company as well, and we usually work on the menu, everything like according to the data analysis.
Okay, so how much has that actually helped in successful decision making is one thing, successful decision making is the other, because every single outlet everywhere you open is now going to be gold.
In terms of data analysis, I just give you one example, very short example. Basically, there used to be a burger called Simply Burger. Basically, it was named Simply Burger. We changed that name from Simply Chicken Burger to Peri Peri Chicken Burger. The Simply name was replaced by Peri Peri, and the sale of that burger with the same recipe jumped to 3x what it was before. So this is how data helps you basically, because people in the country, they associate more with Peri Peri rather than any other name. Simply Cheeseburger.
Okay, so Peri Peri is telling me it's spicy. It's a spicy. I'm getting spicy, so therefore I want to have spicy burger, and it doesn't sound like what McDonald's is currently also offering in terms of its fries. Okay, Joji, why don't you come in on this? Data analytics, we are talking so heavily and big on it. What does it actually mean to you as a company?
Data analytics for us is it's in its nascent state at this point in time, I'll be very honest with you. But as we move along and build scale, I think that's going to be a very integral part of how we are now going to be programming or offering newer products and newer services as part of this entire celebrity e-commerce platform. Our objective is to become the most trusted pipe to the Indian diaspora across tier 2, tier 3 and tier 4 cities who have thus far been completely relegated or cut off from their celebrities, their the fandom that exists in each of these
Okay, but
markets.
what is the kind of data that you would look for, right? If you want to be the new digital Archies, right? So what is the demographic you're looking at? I want to set up a card shop or a flower shop, and you guys are doing something different, but also similar. In the end, it's serving the same purpose. What is the data that matters to you? Are there people interested in doing this? How many birthdays are happening? How many young people? What is the data that would matter to you?
The kind of data that would matter to us is fundamentally how the ease of transactions are going to be. Okay. How do we market and promote this so that consumers understand the value of what is happening? Who is actually using their discretionary income, and how much of this discretionary income is going to be across multiple price points, multiple celebrities, multiple categories, multiple languages, multiple territories. So these are important data points that we collect in our entire process on a day-to-day level. Okay. And of course, it will find this particular science as we get bigger and start getting more scale to be able to now dive deep into each of these.
Okay, I've only got a couple of minutes left, so let me leave that with Prasadji. Prasadji, in hiring, now I'm told that companies nowadays have all these AI algorithms, and you feed in a bunch of CVs and they tell you who your ideal employee should be. How much of that is true, sir?
Absolutely. 100%. I think we have been using it for the last 4 years now, but post-COVID it is there. We have technology which is like, not just you have to feed, it can actually parse resumes, it can look to your skills, competencies, send a video link to the candidate, do a personality assessment, and tell you this is the 86% chances that this Rishabh is going to be fit for NewsX. No, it can do that.
Out of curiosity,
I'm not
how?
joking, it's
Because
joking for
all the CVs I receive still say, excellent in MS Word and MS Excel. How does that tell me if I'm going to be a journalist or not?
Yeah, so I think it looks at various, we look at around 83 parameters. There's an algorithm written down.
Okay.
You have to train the machine. It's not that it's magic from day one. You train the machine that these sort of people are showing traits of success.
Okay.
And it looks at those traits, and this is science, data science. Again, we are doing a session on that. We are doing teaching people how.
So let me ask a practical question. What do you do? So you say, okay, these are the topics better than you hiring 5 people and taking physical interviews. Is it helping you? The probability of getting a good candidate better? Okay, yes. So that's a yes. Okay, of course I need to have, on all these conversations, I can have separate hour-long discussions, but it was great having this one. We've heard from a group of diverse, interesting people who are doing very interesting things in their own right. I'm hoping inspiring you out there to do the same. So if you haven't already, please go check out Whataburger. I've not even discussed with Farman how you guys, dealing with the new aggregation industry. I could have so many conversations I could have had. Check out Whataburger. Check out their peri-peri burger. It's very yeah, go ahead, Prasadji.
Yeah, I think the user should also look at for a lot of startup ventures, like the government has Atal Incubation Center.
Okay.
And just urge entrepreneurs to apply for them and have the idea just go
so
ahead.
Look out, there are a lot offering. Some of them are being offering by angel investors. Some of them are being offering even out of universities. So do check out the peri-peri burger of Whataburger. If you have a birthday or anniversary coming up, do check out Go Nuts. And of course, if you're a company out there looking for HR services, Zing HR, Google them. Thank you all. And of course, keep reading Business World and watching NewsX.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.